The day God split the Red Sea was a day that shook the entire ancient world. It wasn't just a miracle, it was a declaration. A statement that echoed from the deserts of Sinai to the halls of every kingdom on earth. This was the day the world learned who the God of Israel truly was. To understand the sheer magnitude of this event, we have to go back to the beginning of the escape. For 430 years, the Israelites had been slaves in Egypt, the mightiest empire of the ancient world. Their lives were defined by brick and mortar, by the lash of the taskmaster, and by the cries of a people whose hopes had been crushed for generations. But God heard their cries. He sent Moses, a man raised in Pharaoh's own house, to demand their release. What followed was a series of 10 plagues, each one a direct challenge to the gods of Egypt, each one demonstrating the superior power of the one true God. Frogs, locusts, darkness, every plague chipped away at Pharaoh's pride and the foundation of his empire. Finally, with the death of the firstborn, a shattered Pharaoh relented. He told the Israelites to go, and so they did. More than 2 million people, men, women, children, and their livestock walked out of Egypt, their heads held high, carrying the wealth of the nation that had enslaved them. For the first time in centuries, they were free. But their freedom was fragile, lasting only a fleeting moment. As the massive column of Israelites marched toward the wilderness, word reached Pharaoh. His advisors, his military commanders, they all came to him, their voices filled with rage and disbelief. "What have we done?" they cried. "We have let our workforce go." The economic backbone of Egypt was gone. The source of their immense wealth and power had just walked out the door. Pharaoh's heart, which had been softened by grief, now hardened with a burning desire for revenge. Pride, regret, and fury consumed him. He would not be made a fool of. He would not let his slaves defy him. He immediately summoned his army, not just any soldiers, but the elite of the Egyptian military. 600 of his best chariots, the most advanced and feared weapon of the ancient world. These were the tanks of their day, fast, deadly, and driven by hardened warriors. And it wasn't just the elite 600. The Bible says all the chariots of Egypt were deployed, along with their captains. Thousands of them, thundering across the desert sands, their wheels churning up a massive cloud of dust that could be seen for miles. Their mission was simple: recapture the Israelites and drag them back to slavery or destroy them in the desert. Meanwhile, the Israelites were following a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, a visible manifestation of God leading them. But God's route was strange. He led them not on the direct path to the Promised Land, but south toward the Red Sea. He led them into what seemed like a perfect trap. They arrived at the edge of the water, a vast, impassable sea stretching out before them. To their left and right were impassable mountains, boxing them in. And then they saw it, a dark cloud on the horizon, growing larger and larger. The ground began to tremble. The sound of thousands of horses and chariot wheels grew from a distant rumble to a deafening roar. Pharaoh's army was upon them. Imagine the terror. After a brief taste of freedom, they were trapped. There was nowhere to run. The sea was in front, the mountains on either side, and the most powerful army on earth was closing in behind them, intent on their destruction. The hope that had filled their hearts just days before evaporated, replaced by sheer, gut-wrenching panic. The people turned on Moses. Their voices were filled with accusation and despair. "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" they cried. "It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." Their faith, so recently kindled, was extinguished by fear. They saw only the chariots, the water, the mountains. They had forgotten the God who had just brought Egypt to its knees. But Moses did not waver. In the face of an entire nation's panic and the terrifying might of the Egyptian army, he stood as a rock. His voice rang out over the terrified cries of the people. "Do not be afraid," he declared. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. What incredible faith! While everyone else saw a dead end, Moses saw the stage for God's greatest miracle yet. He turned to God, crying out for deliverance. And God's instruction was simple yet profound. Tell the Israelites to move forward, forward, forward into the sea. It made no sense from a human perspective, but Moses obeyed. He lifted his staff, the same staff that had turned into a serpent and struck the Nile, and stretched his hand out over the Red Sea. What happened next defies all natural explanation. A great east wind began to blow. This wasn't just a strong breeze. The Bible describes it as a mighty, powerful wind that roared through the entire night. It was a supernatural force, howling with the very power of its creator. The wind ripped at the surface of the water, pushing it, driving it back. The waters began to churn and rise. They didn't just recede, they split. The sea parted, piling up on itself into two gigantic, liquid walls. The wind continued to blow, drying the seabed until a wide, clear path appeared right through the middle of the Red Sea. Picture the scene. An entire nation paralyzed with fear, now staring in utter disbelief. On their right, a towering wall of water shimmering and alive. On their left, another towering wall of water. And in between, a dry path. God had made a highway through the sea. Tentatively at first, then with growing confidence, the Israelites stepped onto the seabed. They walked on dry ground, with the water standing as a fortress on either side. An entire nation, millions of people, their children, their livestock marched between the liquid walls. The pillar of fire moved behind them, standing between the Israelites and the Egyptians, casting a divine light on Israel's path while plunging the Egyptian camp into a confusing darkness. When the Egyptians saw the path, their arrogance knew no bounds. They didn't see it as a miracle of Israel's God. They saw it as a lucky break, an escape route they could also use. Consumed by their pursuit, Pharaoh's entire army, all his horses, his chariots, and his horsemen charged into the pathway in the sea. They were sure their victory was at hand, but their chariots, so effective on the desert plains, became a liability on the damp seabed. The wheels got stuck. The Bible says God threw the Egyptian army into a confusion. They began to panic. "Let's get away from the Israelites," they shouted. "The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt." They finally realized they were not fighting a band of slaves. They were fighting the God of the universe, but it was too late. As the last Israelite stepped safely onto the far shore, God gave the command to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen." Moses obeyed, and as the sun began to rise, the towering walls of water, held back by nothing but the power of God, collapsed. The sea crashed back into its place with unimaginable force, a thundering torrent that swallowed the entire Egyptian army. Not one of them survived. The pride of Egypt, the mightiest army on earth, was utterly destroyed in an instant. That morning, as the Israelites stood on the shore, they saw the bodies of their former masters washed up on the sand. The source of their terror, the symbols of their oppression, were gone. They were truly, finally free. Their fear was transformed into awe-filled faith. They saw with their own eyes that no king, no army, no power on earth could stand against the living God. Miriam, Moses' sister, took up a tambourine, and all the women followed her, dancing and singing, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he is hurled into the sea." The song of deliverance echoed across the water, a testament to a miracle that would be told for all generations to come. The day God split the Red Sea was the day Israel was truly born as a nation, not of slaves, but of people redeemed by the mighty hand of God. Type Amen if you believe in the power of God. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of faith.